Alonso Álvarez de Pineda is largely considered the first white man to explore the upper Gulf of Gulf of America. The 1519 expedition literally reshaped the world when they became the first Europeans to see and map Mobile Bay, the Mississippi River Delta, and they even founded the city of Corpus Christi, Texas. Yet, Pineda's endeavors are mostly forgotten. Until today. I'm your host, Stu Donald. Let's head to the Delta. The first European to lay eyes on the sugar-white sands of the American Gulf Coast was not any of the Fab Four of Spanish exploration: Vasco Núñez de Balboa, Juan Ponce de Leon, Hernán Cortez, or Hernando de Soto. No, the first tourist to the Gulf Coast was Alonso Álvarez de Pineda. Born in 1494 in Spain, de Pineda was a Spanish explorer and cartographer who charted the entire Gulf Coast of America, from the Florida Keys to Veracruz. He became the first European to record the mouth of the Mississippi River and explore parts of what is now Texas. Although his mission sought to find a sea route to the Orient, his efforts instead led to the detailed mapping of the coastline and ultimately debunked the existence of such a passage. When Sebastian de Ocampo navigated the northern coast of the island of Cuba in 1508, it established a few things. The expedition skimmed the coastline via the Old Bahama Channel and rounded the western tip near Cape San Antonio. His journey, spanning 8 months, countered the Gulf Stream's flow. While Europeans had already visited Cuba prior to Ocampo's expedition, his circumnavigation definitely established that it was an island encircled by water, dispelling earlier theories that it might be a peninsula. It also established the body of water on the far side of Cuba as a new frontier. In 1519, de Pineda led multiple expeditions to chart the westernmost Gulf of Mexico, now Gulf of America, from the Yucatan Peninsula to the Panuco River. He also explored parts of Florida, which most thought was an island. Earlier explorations by Anton de Alaminos had ruled out the western area as the site of a sea passage, leaving the region between the Panuco River and Florida to be surveyed. Francisco de Garay, governor of Santiago, organized an expedition equipping 3 ships with 270 soldiers under Álvarez de Pineda's command. Departing Santiago in early 1520, Álvarez de Pineda sailed west along the Gulf's northern coastline. Near southern Florida's western tip, his attempt to sail east was thwarted by unfavorable winds. Eventually, he anchored at Villarrica de la Veracruz shortly after Hernán Cortez had left. De Pineda would have been the first European to see the Big Bend area of Florida, or the white sands of Gulf shores. He would be the first European to see the open mouth of Mobile Bay, or the barrier island that is now a resort town called Dolphin Island. He was the first European to see both the Mobile-Tensaw Delta and the Mississippi River Delta, the 2 largest deltas in the contiguous 48 states. De Pineda's expedition would return back to Jamaica in late 1519, but without its leader, who stayed behind and presumably died in Texas. Amichel was how the Spanish recorded the name of a Native American province along the Gulf Coast that stretched from the Mobile-Tensaw Delta all the way to present-day Apalachicola Bay in Florida. In spring of 2007, Dr. Deborah Clifton, a Creek Choctaw anthropology professor at LSU Lafayette, solved the etymology of Amichel. She opined that was the Spanish way of writing Am-Ixil, which in Tabasco Maya means place of the goddess Ixil. Ixil was the young goddess of the moon, fertility, medicine, rain, and trade, plus was the consort of the sun god, or in some provinces, Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. Temples dedicated to Ixil are often in the shape of a crescent, like a moon, and she is more times than not pictured holding a pet rabbit. Deep in the interior of the Mobile-Tensaw Delta, you will find the remains of a large city near Bottle Creek, which lends its name to the site. Archaeologists believe that the town, first established in the 13th century, was the political, religious, and cultural center of the north-central Gulf Coast. The city was built by the Mississippian culture, who's also responsible for Moundville in northern Alabama and Cahokia near St. Louis, Missouri. It is no stretch to say that Bottle Creek was the capital of Amichel. Now in 1519, Alonso Álvarez de Pineda first explored the Gulf Coast, stretching from Florida to Veracruz, Mexico, redefining the region known as Amichel to encompass the entire coastline. He described the area as fertile and idyllic, populated by peaceful natives with affectionate dispositions, suggesting that they could be suitable for conversion to Catholicism. Reports indicated significant physical diversity among the inhabitants, with some standing as tall as 7 feet while others were no more than 3.5 or 4 feet. It was also noted that certain natives adorned themselves with gold jewelry in their nostrils and earlobes, and the territory was said to contain a widespread presence of precious metals. Because of this, Álvarez de Pineda returned to Amichel near the mouth of Rio Panuco in late 1519 or early 1520. Francisco de Garay, Álvarez's sponsor, was desperate to establish and maintain a colony in Amichel. The colony he sought to establish there was destroyed shortly after he arrived in a Huastec uprising that cost Álvarez himself his life. Alonso Álvarez de Pineda, the first European to explore the upper Gulf of Gulf of America, had changed the atlas forever after charting Mobile Bay and the Mississippi River Delta. So it was just another day at the office when he first entered the large saltwater estuary with a natural deep-water harbor on the day of the Feast of Corpus Christi, 1519. Because of the date, the bay was named Corpus Christi Bay, and the settlement Pineda founded there is now known as the city of Corpus Christi, Texas. That same year, Hernando Cortez first landed on the Yucatan Peninsula at what is now known as the Isle of Cozumel. Soon, he would found Villarica de la Veracruz, now Veracruz. Then, he led a land expedition from the Gulf inland some 250 miles to the site of present-day Mexico City. For these achievements, Cortez was named Marqués del Valle de Oaxaca. Oh, and also for the complete destruction of the Aztec civilization. The honor is especially notable considering that Cortez' enterprise began as an act of mutiny against his patron, the governor of Cuba, Diego Velázquez de Cuellar. Pineda, at the behest of his patron, Francisco de Garay, governor of the colony of Santiago, now Jamaica, embarked on a second expedition to the Gulf region. Pineda's fleet would eventually drop anchor off of Veracruz, narrowly missing Hernán Cortez. The latter, having learned of the former's arrival at the settlement he had just founded, abandoned his conquest and returned to Veracruz. Álvarez de Pineda wished to establish a boundary between the lands he was claiming for Garay and those that Cortez had already claimed. However, Cortez was in no mood to bargain. Pineda was armed with orders from Garay to take over the settlement. Cortez refused the orders, brandishing a title establishing Veracruz as his estate. Wanting to avoid bloodshed between the two countrymen, whose loyalty was pledged to the same flag, Pineda decided to take his fleet and sail north along the Gulf Coast in order to establish his own settlement. Now, Cortez' loyalty was not to the Spanish Empire, but to his own hubris. He didn't want any rival to his power, not even a fellow countryman. Pineda's fleet had hardly gotten under sail when Cortez' men attacked. Most of Pineda's men were captured, but the Conquistador and a number of his faithful lieutenants managed to escape by water and 8 days later found refuge at the mouth of a new river we now call the Rio Grande. He found that within a 50-mile radius of where they landed, there were roughly 40 different native tribes. On Pineda's third expedition to the region, he sought to colonize the Panuco River near present-day Tampico, Mexico. Álvarez de Pineda was subsequently killed in a battle with the native Huastec people. Cortez, for his part, would remain in New Spain until 1541, before returning to Europe where he would pass 6 years later. Y'all subscribe now, you hear?